So, good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, who are in a different time zone. Am I audible? Okay. Can you please put
Yes.
your mic on mute so that only there is no echo or no disturbances? Okay, let me share my screen. Are you able to see my screen? Hello, anyone? Guy, can you please confirm if you can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. This was a presentation I created for someone else. I delivered it a couple of days back. So it was basically a boot camp which was on August 24 I conducted. So this presentation is a part of 32 slides, means 32 different presentations. So, but I'll go quickly to the area for which we are here. I hope all of you already have learned about the IP layers. Is anyone here who haven't studied it, who haven't read it? Please try to make it a interactive session. I don't want like I am the only one who is speaking and you guys are just quiet. And that is only possible if you interact. Is anyone here in the group who haven't studied yet the IP layers?
Mm,
So I assume everyone is aware about the IP layers.
Uh,
Okay, what is
yes.
layer 4? Quickly. I don't want you to go to your notes now. What is layer 6?
Presentation.
Okay. So
Presentation layer.
okay. I hope I'll just try to make this session quick. The intention of the session is what you have learned. You have learned about the the benefits,
Yes.
the functionalities, the features of all the layers, right?
Yes.
Now, what I'm going to walk you through with the associated attacks with each and every layer. So let's start quickly.
Uh, okay.
So this is what you have learned so far, right? We have a physical layer which consists of signals, media, transmissions, right? Guys, please. Okay, you can unmute your mics
I
and
ca- I
Okay.
Uh,
I can't say anything, sir. Just white.
can
I cannot see also anything from my side.
Just
okay, let
white, sir.
me stop sharing and then share it again. Now, are you able to see?
Yes, sir.
Nothing.
Great.
Mm,
Yeah, it's
no.
okay now, sir.
Nope.
So we are talking about the physical layer, data link, network, transport, session, presentation, and application.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm guessing someone is trying to join. Am I still presentable? Are you able to see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Now, when we are talking about the physical layer, we all know why the physical layer is so important because that's our first basic layer. After the physical layer, when we move up, we go to the data link layer. Data link layer is the MAC where we get the MAC address,
Address.
right? Then we go to the network layer where we have a IP to IP connectivity. And after that, we have a transport layer where the data is transferred, then the session, then presentation, and then application. So let's take a step back. Why these layers are invented? Because while I was looking at your uh, video presentations, and then I realized most of you or many of you do not have the computer backgrounds or our IT background. We all know we live in an IT world. We all know we have computers, but how the computer started? Do you remember? Like it all started with the mainframes, big computers.
With MX and NVAX. Yes.
That's correct. And after that, what was the next revolution? When we tried to connect two computers, correct? And what was the next revolution? When we
Transition.
tried to connect multiple computer, means a network. Now, when we are talking here about the network layers, so this is all related to a network. When we are trying to send a data from one machine to another machine, right?
Mhm.
So what happens when we are trying to send a data from one machine to another machine? First of
It
all, we need a wire. We need a connectivity. That becomes your physical layer. Now, every machine should have some unified or unique number. We call it a MAC address because we need to assign a physical address to each and every machine. Now, when we have a physical address, then we need to give a IP address to a machine. There comes your networks. Once you have a network, once you have an IP address, now you want to send, it's like a postal address. You already have a postal address and you want to send a data. Like how do we send a data in normal life? LBC or any other medium, right? Similarly, we have protocols, TCP, telecommunication protocol, UDP, undefined protocols. Under these protocols, there are multiple different protocols, HTTP, HTTPS, SSL, and so on. Once the transport layer is about to send a data, then there should be a session which needs to be created. Why the session is required? Authentications. If there is a web application you are going to develop, how do you authenticate? Username and password? Am I right?
Yes, sir.
that's
Yes.
fine.
Do you type username and password on each and every page you access?
No.
No.
So what happens behind the scene? You type username and password, it is authenticated, a token and session is generated, and every time with your request, you use the same token or same session,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So that's where the session layer comes. Then your data, that comes for a representation. So there is a presentation layer, and final is the application. If you are sending a data or you are accessing a website, you are using a web browser. So let's go into a little bit more detail. Now I would like one of you to start explaining the layers from here to up. So there are 7 layers and I need 7 volunteers. Anyone
Uh,
from physical?
is it like one student per layer?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Should I start?
Yep.
Oh, hello. Hello, this is Jessica. And for physical layer, it is composed of the hardware components and provides a direct point-to-point data connection. So mostly it is either via Ethernet or via wireless setup, or those devices that are composing it.
Okay. And there are the examples also I mentioned here, the cables, hub. These are all the examples because these are the physical medium attachments. Now we move to next layer, data link. Anyone, guys? Hello?
Okay, let me just do the data link.
Yeah,
By the way,
please tell your name as well, because
sure, no
who are
problem.
going to present are going to get some additional marks.
Okay, so for I'm series Blue Season, but you can call me Sam.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just give you definition of data link on the point of view I am actually understanding it. So basically, this data link layer defines how data is formatted for transmission and how data accesses, how data accesses the physical layer. So mostly, it does error checking. I mean, typically it includes error checking, and example devices that I know are bridges and switches.
When we are talking about the the data link layer, basically this is a layer when your network cards comes in the picture. Your network cards are the one who have a associated MAC address. It's not in the machine, it's always the MAC address of the network card.
Mhm.
Okay, now we go to the network 3. No volunteer? Mhm. Okay. Hi Glenn. John. Mhm. Okay, one more example. Yeah, that's correct. Now we go to transport layer.
Good afternoon, sir. This is Rock, Scotia.
Mm-hmm.
With regards to the transport layer, we can the best example for these are like the um, LBC or the other companies that helps us transporting goods. So in the transport layer, what happens exactly is the packages are are divided into data packets,
Mm-hmm.
and a header is added to the data.
Mm-hmm.
So all this information, the source, the sequence number, for example, the acknowledgement number, these are information that are relayed through the transport layer. So basically, in the transport layer, what happens are the data are packed and unpacked from source to the destination.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's correct. Now we go to session layer.
Thank you, also, I just want to give another additional information that I actually learned from Cisco, from my training with Cisco.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is series again. Well, as my classmate a while ago told us that under transfer session, this is where we get the packets, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. For just so I know that for TCP, we call packets. And so it is for UDP, then it is a datagram. Just like an additional thing. Yeah, carry on.
Okay. Now we go to presentation.
Well, we skipped session.
Sorry, we go to session. Anyone for session? Guys, I believe we are 20 plus here in this session. And we are only talking about 7 layers. And there is already something on the screen. It's not like I'm asking question.
Hello, sir. This is Isa, sir.
Okay, please
Can I
go.
proceed? Okay. I think a session layer is wherein we establish a connection between computer to computer, or some sort of like that, sir. It's
No,
like when you communicate with one computer to the other. It is the it is where in this layer that what do you call this? Um, that these things happen, sir.
no,
Uh,
I'm sorry. You are very far from your answer.
I'm sorry.
can
Anyone
I
else?
can I try, sir?
Yeah, sure.
Hello, this is Jessica. So what I learned from SIP school is session layer. Uh, it mostly uses the session initiation protocol, wherein this application handles um, the establishment, modification, and termination of multimedia sessions. So, when there's a conversation like VoIP calling, either you initiate and as long as you initiate and terminate the interaction or the communication, that's where the session layer is involved.
Yeah, that's correct. Because when you're talking about session layers, you're talking there about the application to application level or a protocol to protocol level. You are not talking about a computer to computer connectivity. If you want to connect two computers, you put up a wire in between both of them. You can say I connected two computers, but that's just a physical connection. When computer A will send some data and computer B will receive, there should be some application. So the session, there are the examples as well. When you're talking about the SQL, when you're talking about NetBIOS. Okay, we move to presentation. No one, no volunteer. So I'll make it who are not going to reply will have a negative marking. Yes, John. Mm-hmm. 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 Data compression and data encryption happens at presentation layer, not at session layer. Yeah, I thought you said like you wanted to add something, so I missed that you were talking about presentation layer. I'm expecting you were adding something in this topic.
Pag nakita siya, gagano siya, gagano, kasama kaya.
We move to application layer, guys.
I think, sir, application layer is the program that we are using, like Chrome,
Mm-hmm.
something like that.
Absolutely correct. So that the intention here was I just wanted to have this session so that I know how much studies you guys already have done. Because this is just a one topic. Can you please mute your mic if there is a background disturbances? Okay, thank you. So the intention was to check how much you guys have studied because after the exam, I don't want like during the great consultation, I'm getting the excuses I did not get ample time or opportunity. Now I'll go to the next stage. These are the layers, right?
Yes,
We have
sir.
Yes.
physical, we have data link, we have network, transport, session, presentation, and application. What you are learning, how this layer operates, and how these layers are being used. What I'm going to now explain you, what are the vulnerabilities with this layer? Physical layer. Can anyone explain me any vulnerability? If I am a hacker, how can I hack the physical layer?
Hello, sir.
Mm-hmm.
If someone directly connects to the network through Wi-Fi or Ethernet,
Mm-hmm.
that's one vulnerability for the physical layer.
But when we are talking about, I understand if someone connects to the network to a physical layer, but when we are talking about Wi-Fi, the Wi-Fi is open, so at least it's an open invitation to everyone.
Mm,
Keystroke blocking, lock pickings, and cutting cable. Simple example. We are talking here about physical layer, right?
yes.
Guys, can someone mute? I see some background noise of someone. So it's okay. Thank you. So if there is a network, like let's say, take an example. In your office, you have a network. Each and every machine is connected via server. If someone disconnect, cut the cable, you cannot connect. Correct? That's a hacking attempt, and that's on the physical layer. Now we go to the next layer, data link. Data link layer is the layer when you get the MAC address. Now, if you have a MAC address, your MAC address can be spoofed. Your ARP cache poisoning can also be done. What is ARP?
Address resolution protocol.
That's correct. How do we use that?
It's usually for broadcast,
Mm-hmm. Correct.
broadcast domains.
Okay.
Hello, this is Jessica.
Oh, thanks, Jessa. I'll give another example for the MAC address spoofings. Let's say there is a Wi-Fi connection, and the Wi-Fi is only allowed who have a username and password. How this whole cycle works? From there is a Wi-Fi device, we call it a router. Router sends the beacon in the air. This is my name. Basically, he is broadcasting the SSID. I believe all of you have a Wi-Fi at your home, and your Wi-Fi have some name, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So that name we call it SSID, SSID of a router. Now on the other side, we have clients. The clients are our laptop, our phones, and all those things. Now, all these clients, whatever we have, we try to connect to a Wi-Fi. How do we do that? We see there is a Wi-Fi name. We try to send the request. If it is open, our request is accepted. If it is not open, then we get a okay, you need to enter username and password. We type, we send back the request, then we get the response. And if our response is accepted, then we are connected and we have an IP address. Correct? Guys,
Yes, sir.
does it make sense? If you are not able to understand, please feel free to ask. So in a simple way, we trying to connect to a router, we are sending the username and password. If it is a successful connection, we get the IP address. When we send the username and password, in that request packet, we have our MAC address as well. In the router, there is a table where you associate, okay, this is a MAC address and this is the IP. And you prepare that table. That table is used because whatever website, let's say, take an example, you are accessing some website. You will send your request from your laptop. Request will go to a router. Router will send that request. When the response comes from the website, router will send the response to you. So router should know who are the person who are requesting. That's why router always maintain a table in which the MAC address and IP address, these are stored. So in a simple layman term, anyone who is connected to a router, his MAC address and IP addresses which are given by router are stored there. Does it make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, if there is a connection, let's say a coffee, some cafe where there is a Wi-Fi which is open, but when you connect, it shows you a web page. Please type your username and password. Technically speaking, you are already in the network because otherwise you will not see the web page. We call it captive portal.
Captive.
Like there are two ways when you are connecting to a Wi-Fi. First, it will ask you username and password. Like on the type the username and type the password, and then only you can move forward. That is the first layer of security. But few Wi-Fis, they are open. There is no password. They will let you connect. But once you connect, then you see, let's say, either the hotel name or their picture. Like a web browser, whenever you try to open any website, it will take you to their home page and will ask you to enter username and password. Those home pages are known as captive portal. Now, technically speaking, that page will not appear on your machine unless you are connected to the network. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
So if you are connected to a network, what network is doing, network is not allowing you to open any website unless you authenticate. At this stage, if you know, there are techniques to know, if you know anyone who is connected to the network, you get the MAC address of that person and you change the MAC address of your machine with that MAC address and you try to open any website, you can open the websites. It will work. Now you learn something new.
Thanks, sir.
Got it?
Yes, sir.
Packet sniffing, I'll show you some examples. We'll come back on this later on. We'll go to network layer. In the network layer, connectivity is between IP to IP. I am connected, my machine have an IP address. Someone else is connected, their machine also have an IP address. Now, when we have an IP address, the attack will happen on the IP layer. Let's say ping. You know ping?
Yes, sir.
What happens when you do the ping? It sends the 4 packets of data and receives the 4 packets of data. But if someone will try to send 100 of bytes of data from 1,000 of different locations to one server, what will happen?
It will flood the network.
It will flood the network. It will crash the server.
Yes.
Similarly, port knocking. Port knocking is a technique generally which is used for security. And it is also a technique which is used by the hackers to know what are the ports which are available.
Yes.
How many ports do we have in a network? 65,534 to be precise. We use ports for different purposes, like port 80. This is for
HTTP.
HTTP websites. Port 443. HTTPS 21. You use for SMTP 22, FTP, and so on, right? So we have so many different ports. And what hacker will try to do when they are into the network and they have an IP address, they will start knocking each and every port. Port 1, 2, 3, 4. just to check which ports are open, because that becomes their entry point. Port knocking is a technique which is used like in one of our company. What do we do? All ports are open, all ports are closed. If you will try to ping, you will not get any response. But there is a combination of ports. If you will ping, let's say you ping in a series 80, 443, 587, 21, then it will open port 500. So it's like a key combination. So this combination is used to knock the port and see whether they are open or not. Is it clear? Hello, anyone there?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
good.
sir.
Now we go to transport. In transport, we were talking about the example was LBC. So we have protocols which transport our data from one location to another. And data is transferred in TCP or UDP. Now, if someone flood the network by so many other packets, what is going to happen?
There will be delay.
There will be delay or the network may crash, right?
Yes.
What the other kind of things they do? What they do, they create the zombies. If they hack any one of the machine,
Yes.
right? So
So
what
they
they will
will.
do, they will create the zombie. Once they will install something on your machine, then their machine or your machine can be used anytime, whenever they want. So what they do, they create the zombies and then ask these zombies to hack or attack one machine. And these zombie networks are out there in darknet for sale. We go to session. In the session layer, we were talking about, let's say you type a username and you type a password. What happens? Now you have a session. If someone is able to sniff that session, then they don't need user ID and password to make a request to a server to do something. You got it? Guys,
Yes.
did you? Okay, who will explain to me this further?
Which one, sir?
Session. In this session, we're talking about session hijacking. Let's say I am the one. I connected to a website. Website will ask, type your name. I type my name. Website will ask, type your password. I do that. And I click submit. Then it says, oh, you have successfully logged in. Then I go to different pages. Profile page, change password, post something, like something. But whenever I do those activities, the application don't ask me each and every time what is my username and password. So how the application knows who am I or whether am I allowed or not? How the application knows?
Through authentication mechanisms.
Yes, when there was authentication done,
This
then
is,
they create a session and then they give you a session ID.
by the way, sir, this is Larry Neri.
Okay, hello. So if you have a session ID, whenever you send any request, with the request there is a session. So that application know this request I am getting from this person. But if you are able to hack the session, then what is going to happen? You don't need a username and password. You will send the request and change the session. That's it. Session attacks are mostly successful if your website is non-HTTPS. If your website don't have a SSL certificate, most likely your site can be hijacked for session or ARP spoofing. Now we go to a DOS. DOS attack, you already know. What is DOS?
Denial of service.
Yes, because in my last class I got an answer, disk operating system. So how do we perform a denial of service attack?
It is by flooding, for example, the network. So sometimes the bandwidth are utilized in a wrong manner.
Mhm.
So
It's not only limited to the bandwidth, it can be your CPU as well. It can be your RAM as well.
Mhm.
If someone is able to consume the resources, you know, you have a computer. In your computer, you may have a RAM, 8 GB, 16 GB, 32 GB. Are we familiar with that?
yes,
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, sometimes when you open too many applications, what happens? Your computer goes, it becomes slower, right?
it hangs sometimes.
Sometimes it hangs. What happens? Because each and every application, what you are trying to open, consume RAM. Now, if you have a water bottle in which you have 500 ml of water and you have a glass which can only hold 300 ml, and we ask you to empty the bottle into a glass, what is going to happen?
Overflow.
Overflow. That's the application layer. Similarly, when it cannot sustain, it will crash. That's the attack we do in the session layer. Now we go to a presentation layer. In the presentation layer, you also see there is a DOS attack. And in the session layer also there is a DOS attack. Can anyone tell me the difference? Okay. DOS attack, we all know, right? Denial of service attack, how it can be performed. Are we clear on that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I am only hearing a yes from one or two. How about the others?
Sir, can you repeat
Okay. Which part?
the difference between I didn't hear what he said.
Okay. I did not even reach the difference yet. I was simply asking denial of service attack. Is it clear to all of you?
Oh, denial.
Yes, no.
Yes.
Okay. So I'll just repeat one more time. Denial of service attack means you are attacking or you are sending a request to a server, and the sole purpose is to overwhelm the server so that server don't perform in a natural way. Either server become unresponsive, either server become in a hanging stage, or reboot or crash. Simple example, whenever there is a result, sometimes you see, or maybe let's take an example of Cebu Pack. Whenever you have Piso Pay, Piso Fare, what happens? You're trying to open a site, or either it does not open, or it's very slow. Have you noticed?
Yes, you can't
Like
access
someone
their website
Why that happens?
because of multiple users accessing their website.
That is correct, because server also have a limit. Server can only handle X number of connections at a given point in time. No one put the server on a unlimited resources. And
yes.
when the traffic goes higher than what they expect or their capacity, then it becomes a problem. So what the hacker do? They try to access the server from thousands of different locations because they have created the zombies. They hacked your machine, they hacked my machine, they hacked someone else's machine, and they have created
You got muted, sir.
Hello.
Hello, sir.
Sir, we
So
can hear you
I
now.
was mute for since when?
Uh, 1 minute.
And how this has happened? Someone did it?
OSI.
Accidentally, I guess.
There is an answer. Now, for the DOS attack, is it clear to all of you?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Difference between the DOS attack and the difference between the SSL DOS attack is the encryption layer. You know what is SSL?
Layer.
So,
Secure socket layer.
How does that work?
there
Mm.
is a
It
SSL handshake mechanism happening.
Yes. So it's like this. Whenever you are trying to open a website, let's say abc.com, you type in the browser, your request goes to the website, and the website sends you the response. Simple website. Now, if the website is https://abc.com, then what will happen? First, your browser, because when you open the website sends you the certificate, the public keys. Now, all the traffic, whatever you are sending on that particular website, it gets encrypted at your end. And when it reaches to the server decrypt it, perform the action, and create a response, encrypt the response, and send it back to you. So in this case, what is happening is there is an extra load on the server for encryption and decryption. Right? Hello?
yes.
Guys, are you still there?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Here.
Okay, so that additional encryption and decryption is the one which puts so much load on the server. Now you don't need 1000 machines to hack the site. Whatever you can achieve with the 1000 machines, you can do that with the 100 of machines only. That is why there is a SSL DOS attack which is more powerful than the session attack. You deployed SSL to improve the safety and security of your website, but you put server on the critical stage. And next and the last is your application. We are talking about buffer overflow, remote code executions. This attack happens on the application. When someone, a developer like you, is writing an application and you define, let's say, dim a as integer, b as integer, c is equal to a plus b, and a, because it is integer, can only hold 32-bit of data. So b, which is also an integer, can hold 32-bit of data. and C, which is also an integer, can hold 32 bit of data. Now, in the actual scenario, if someone is inserting some information and A as a placeholder have 32 bit, B 32 bit, so what will be the C? What will be C, guys?
Sorry, sir, can you repeat the question?
Okay, dim A as integer, dim B as integer, dim C as integer, C is equal to A plus B, print C. Now, if A is 32 and B is 32, what will be C?
64.
64. But when I am writing an application, I defined dim C as an integer, which
Okay.
means C can only hold 32 bit.
Okay.
But in this case, someone already have inserted 32 bit. Don't confuse yourself 32 bit as a string, as a number or a string. I'm talking about the bits. If someone inserted already A as a 32 bit long integer, B is also 32 bit, C becomes 64 bit. But when you are writing an application, you define, say, C as an integer, which can only hold 32 bit. What will happen to the rest of data?
It's an error.
It's an error. Your application will crash, buffer overflow. These kind of errors, the hackers look for that. Let's say you have defined username field, you have defined password field. Hacker will try to enter maybe 20,000 character long username.
Mm.
It will crash your browser.
Okay.
Yes.
These are the example because they try to do those things which in a normal circumstance you don't do.
Yes.
So now we know all the 7 layers and we know all the associated attacks to the layers. Anyone have any question on that?
None for now.
None? Okay. Now there is one more layer. Bonus grades for this answer.
There's another here.
Yes.
User layer.
Social
Isn't that for Microsoft?
user. Because we are the weakest link in the security.
Oh, so I'm correct.
Yes, you are correct. So you need to drop
Like user
me
error.
a message so that I remember your name and you get an additional grade point for that.
That's rock, sir.
That's
Rock Escocia.
rocks. Okay. So guys, the intention was just to stir up the group so that if you are not studying, please be serious because exam is not going to be easy. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask or we wrap up the session. So I assume no one have any question.
None for now.
Yes. Yes, John. Okay, let me take a step back. I'll go back and start this presentation again. When we are talking about, this is what we think the hackers are. Now, who are the hackers? Anyone who gain unauthorized access. They are skillful, they are innovative, they customize and combine various vulnerabilities to gain access. It can be one layer, it can be the combination of the layers as well. Does it answer? Anyone have any other question?
Hi, sir. This is Edison.
Mm-hmm. Please go
So
ahead.
which of the layers is that the hackers usually attack? Which
Mhm.
is most vulnerable?
Which is the layer which is most vulnerable?
Vulnerable,
I think
yes.
it's the bulk layer,
Layer 8.
the user layer.
We are the weakest
I'm
link
sorry.
in the whole security chain.
I'm sorry, sir. I didn't hear that.
Layer 8, user. Are you able to hear?
Is it like social engineering, sir?
Yes, that's correct. Social engineering. Social engineering is a term we have given. It's user. Sometimes you call and you say, oh, my Facebook is hacked.
Yeah.
Sometimes you complain, my Gmail is hacked. 90% chances are it's not Gmail or Facebook. It was you
Mhm.
who was played.
Yeah. Sir, I have a question. This is Angela.
Yes, Sanjay.
So, regarding the presentation and session layers, so I've read somewhere that for presentation is also related to encryption, but in other literature that I've read for session, we also encrypt the session. So how is the encryption for the presentation and session layers different,
Okay,
sir?
simple example. The session layer, the session is created by the application. And when they create the session, they can have a session in a plain text or they can have a session encrypted as well.
Mm-hmm.
But when we're talking about presentation layer, let's say SSL, then it is created by the end-to-end points.
Mm-hmm.
Like the SSL is an example of a presentation layer.
So for presentation, the encryption is at the application, and for presentation, the encryption it's in the endpoint.
Let's say for the session layer, whatever the session you are creating, and after
Mm-hmm.
creating the session, what data you transfer from one point to another, whether that data should be encrypted or should not be encrypted, that
Mm-hmm.
is that should be part of the application.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the session encryption and those things happens. Now,
Mm-hmm.
on the other side, there are the chances when there is a SSL involved, then SSL do its own encryption. So let me give you an example. Let's say if there is the form, let's say create a user ID. You write your first name, last name, you define your password, and you submit. Whenever you click submit, all this data can be encrypted
Mm-hmm.
and sent to another end by a developer. Maybe developer can write a code,
Mm-hmm.
encrypt everything, and transfer to the another point.
Mm-hmm.
So in this way, a session can be encrypted.
Oh, is this similar to how a VPN works, sir?
In the VPN, the encryption happens by a protocol.
Mm-hmm.
Same with the SSL. The encryption happens by a protocol, not by a application.
So encryption doesn't only happen in the session layer, correct, sir?
Encryption can be in the application as well. That's correct.
All right. Thank you, sir.
More questions? Guys, questions?
None for me, sir.
Mhm.
Same here, sorry, none for me.
None.
I have a question, sir, not related to the topic.
Mhm.
Just with regards to the next session for us, is it going to be on a Sunday as usual?
Mhm.
Okay, noted, sir.
No, no, sorry. What's the question is?
For the next online session that we're going to have,
Mhm.
is it going to be on a Sunday? Like,
Not sure if there are questions. I'm just
okay.
watching and reading your post, and your all posts are graded. So whenever I see, yes, there are some gaps. So whenever I see the things are not moving as I'm expecting, that's the time I conduct the sessions.
Okay, noted, sir. Thank you, sir.
I'm just trying to look for an application. If I have, then I'll show you something. Okay, I don't have the. I wanted to share with you the Wireshark. Are you guys aware
Yes.
from with the Wireshark?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
All of
Yes, sir.
you?
Yes.
First time
No,
to hear
no,
it.
sir.
No.
No, not
So
familiar, sir.
suggestion: go to the site, download Wireshark on your machine, run the Wireshark, capture the packets, and try to look into the packets. I don't have Wireshark installed in my machine. Otherwise, I wanted to share with you how it can be used. Let me check if I have.
Sir, question.
Mhm.
Hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
Sorry. Sorry. With regards to Wireshark, are you just going to show us how it works, or as well as with the filters? Because I mean, though Wireshark is used to capture packets, it's also considered as
Mhm,
an attack if being used if the user is, as you mentioned, unauthorized. So
mhm.
should we be discussing about it, or you're just gonna give us an overview?
Actually, it's not even running in my machine. I don't have a Wireshark. It's
I
there are no interface on a capture, so it's not properly installed in my machine. So I'll suggest you try to download Wireshark. It's basically a network protocol analyzer.
Mm.
When you will run the Wireshark on your machine, then it will give you the packet information. Uh, like when we are talking about the packet information, all the data going from your machine or coming towards your machine, you will be able to capture.
Mhm.
And then you can try to, like, you try to open a website, and then in the Wireshark you search, and then you will see how the request was made and how the response was sent to you. When we are talking about encryption, let me show you something if I have. Okay, are you able to view my screen?
no, sir, I don't see anything.
No, sir. Now I can.
Yes, we can see. I can see it now.
What I am trying to do? Anyone? What you see on your machine?
Let me.
You're running the potty.
I'm logging into a potty. Now, what I'm doing here
Yes.
is I configure the potty in a way. This is my browser, and all the traffic from my browser, it is going to the potty, and from potty it's going there. So basically, it's an encryption I have set up. If I open my any website, this is my public IP. And if I look for a location, it will point out to Singapore. So basically, it's a standard encryption I have used. Whatever the packet I'm going to send from this browser should go to PuTTY in an encryption. PuTTY decrypt and forward further. And how it is being set up? Let me disconnect. Go back. In the PuTTY, I have added a tunnel. And my tunnel is destination is port 8888. So what happens? PuTTY is listening on port 8888. Now when I go to my browser, and here I'm using the socks on port 8888. My PuTTY is not working, so if I will refresh the page, it will tell me proxy server is refusing the connection. So whatever I open here, it goes on port 8888 over here, and from there, so it's a standard encryption.
I'm sorry, sir. When you mean standard encryption, is it either IES or TKIP, or are you talking about the SHA algorithm?
I'm talking about SHA. It's SHA 256.
Okay.
So you can define whatever the algorithm. It is SSH here. And in SSH, I have defined only the protocols. What are the different keys? What are the cipher I'm going to use? So it's a different algorithm. Depends upon your requirement. You can define what you want. It is helpful while I'm connecting to a public network, and I just want additional layer of security to be added. Any further questions? So we can conclude.
Sir, what would be our topic for next meeting, if ever?
Let's take it from there, because the key is the announcements.
Okay.
It all comes from here. I like it, John. You are very fast. You already have. I have Wireshark installed, but it is a portable version, so it's not running because there is no interface there. Otherwise, you can start the Wireshark. Are you able to see the screen?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Cannot see.
Cannot. So there is no interface. I just need to install it. Otherwise, you select the interface, click capture, and you can see all the traffic coming and going out from this machine.
Yes, sir, but you have to check what kind of connection you have first, right? If you're connected both on Ethernet and your computer also have wireless setup,
No, you need to.
because it will show as an option.
Yes, you need to install. I don't have an installation, so that's why it's showing nothing. And then you can analyze by applying the filters. There are already so many kind of filters which are available which can be used. Any further questions? So we conclude. Thank you guys for your time, patience.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Enjoy your rest of the evening. Bye bye.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks, sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, sir.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.